Welcome to our FabFems Friday. I can't believe this is the last one either. We have been doing these every Friday throughout June and July. And I anticipate we'll throw some more in this fall and spring semesters and be back at it June and July next summer. But thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our fabulous corporate partners who have helped make all of these possible. Applied Materials, Samsung Austin Semiconductor, Shell, and Texas Instruments. You're going to hear from three of our corporate partners today. I'm Tricia Berry. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm the director of the Women in Engineering program within the Cockrell School at UT Austin and your FabFems host for today. We've got our fabfems.org fabulous STEM role model database where you can find all kinds of STEM role models to connect with and learn about. So I encourage you to check that out if you have not done that yet this summer. I'm going to throw in the chat our resources that you can definitely make good use of and check out, where you can get questions answered. We have a Google sheet that our fabulous students have been working on all summer to answer all of your questions that we maybe don't get to during these sessions, and then some. So make sure that you check that out as well. Today, we are welcoming some engineers from our corporate partners. We also have the fabulous Maya and Sarah on here, our WEP crew, students who you have seen throughout the summer helping us to facilitate the Q&A. Make sure that you use that Q&A pod here in the webinar system to throw your questions in. You can click the little like button, which moves questions up in the queue. So if we have questions that lots of people want to get answered, we can make sure we hit those. And again, for those questions that we maybe don't get to, we will make sure we add them to that Google sheet, and we'll share that link again later. We're going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves here in just a moment to get us started. And I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask them to get us started after their introductions. And then we're turning it over to you to get your questions answered. So you can start throwing questions in whenever you're ready, and we'll be ready to hop into that facilitated Q&A soon. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our fabulous corporate partners and panelists that have joined us today. We have Sarah from Texas Instruments, Marisela from Applied Materials, and Katie from Samsung Austin Semiconductor joining us. So I'm going to kick it over to Sarah to start us off. If you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and where you're from and what your degree is, and maybe share with us an out-of-work hobby or something you like to do out in the real world as well.
Absolutely. Hi, y'all. I'm Sarah. I'm with Texas Instruments. I am the photolithography process engineering manager for one of our factories in Dallas. I am born and raised in Dallas, so I went out to Los Angeles for school. So I have an undergrad in chemical engineering and a master's in materials engineering from the University of Southern California. I graduated with my master's in 2017, so I've been working full-time for about 4 years now, all at TI, all in the same factory, but a few different groups. And a hobby outside of work, I love to travel. I just got back from the Bahamas the other week. I'm a little nervous now with how things are, kind of ticking back up again. I've got some other trips planned later this fall in September to Disney World and Aspen for a wedding, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to those, but it's been great to be able to travel again.
Awesome. Bahamas sounds lovely. I'm thinking beach now in my head. That's amazing. Thanks, Sarah. Marisela.
Okay, I hope if I get off mute. Hi, my name is Marisela Rios. I go by she, hers. I'm originally from McAllen, Texas, but I've pretty much been living here in Austin for the last way too many years. I have a BS in mechanical engineering back in 93. Oh my God, 94, wrong year. I work for Applied Materials. I've been with my company over 26.5 years. I am the operations manager for one of our divisions called DSM, which is Dielectric Systems and Modules. So what what I like to do outside of work. I used to do a lot of things, but lately not too many. I hang out with my little bulldog Fiona and growing an out of control little herb garden that I have. So that's what I like to do right now.
Awesome. Those are good things. Marcela's bulldog is a cute little round thing that is probably snoring behind her right now.
He is right here.
Katie, let's hear from you.
Hey, my name's Katie Van Strander. I use she, her pronouns. And I grew up in South Florida. Then I went to school up in New York City. So I went to NYU and also Stevens Institute of Technology, which is in Hoboken across the river. So I studied chemistry and chemical engineering. It was a 5-year dual degree program. I work at Samsung Austin Semiconductor right now. I've been there for 7 years. I am a team lead or supervisor for a team of engineers and technicians that focus on material quality. So all the chemicals and gases that are used in the manufacturing process, we're in charge of those. And outside of work, I like hiking, I like gardening. I also have a dog who's crying for attention right now. He's a little min pin Jack Russell mix, so lots of energy. And that's me.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, if we've learned nothing else over our year and a half in Zoom and online meetings, is that our dogs still want our attention, and they always really want it when we're doing things, right? So here we are. Yeah. Thanks, Katie. I'm gonna come to you first with our question here. So we've got 2 chemical engineers with some different twists to your degrees. And then we have Marisela, who also has a mechanical engineering degree. So let's hear, Katie, if you can start, what made you decide to pursue your field of engineering, or maybe that combination of degrees, and talk a little bit about your work in this field. What have you done? Maybe what's a project that you've done that you could tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, so I always really liked chemistry, but I think in terms of a career, I knew that without like a PhD and like getting really into depth into something, that career options would be kind of limited. So I found this program where I could still study chemistry and kind of, fulfill that curiosity, but also do chemical engineering, which I think there's a little more in terms of career there. So that's why I went with that. At Samsung, I've had both equipment-based positions, and now I'm more on the process side with the materials. On the equipment side, things like, reading pump curves, dealing with Venturi effects, sizing different valves and tubing, all of that I use my chemical engineering background in. Now it's a lot more just database and statistics and using the general engineering knowledge, but even recently we were trying to calculate dilution time for new material that would get loaded into a distribution system and go into the factory. So we want to know at what point that material is going to actually reach the factory tools. So we were looking at the right data when we're trying to see what the change is or what the effect is. So we had to actually kind of go back to our chem eng knowledge and model this based on like a CSTR, continuous third reactor. And that was, my first time picking that up in quite some time. So I had to do some Googling, but, definitely it's good to have that background and see the application in the field from time to time.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, I think knowing that we don't know it all, and sometimes we do have to Google to figure out how to do it and shift how we're learning as we go throughout our career is something that doesn't change from college, right? That's awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you, Katie. Marisela, let's come to you.
Okay, so I'm the one with a mechanical engineering degree, and now Fiona's, of course, snoring very loud. So I chose mechanical engineering because I always loved to tear things apart when I was a kid. I used to annoy my mom when she would try to teach me how to cook as to why are we doing that? Why are you putting that first? Why are you doing this? She's like, go outside with your dad. So I did. And then, of course, I would annoy my dad. Why are we doing this? Why are you taking that apart? Why do we have to put oil then? But my dad had the patience with me that my mom didn't necessarily have to answer my questions as to why we had to take stuff apart. So I learned how to change the oil in a tractor before I even learned how to cook anything. from that day, I knew I wanted to get into something that I was going to be able to use my hands, use my brain, and just go from there. So I decided engineering. I think I was in 6th grade when I decided I wanted to be an engineer. Now I kept switching between aerospace, chemical, civil, every single field of engineering. But when I came to UT to the orientation session, mechanical definitely drew my attention because of the capability of going anywhere. Now working at Applied Materials, I've been able to use more of the process, thinking, problem solving from the engineering side. I've definitely had a very, diverse career at Applied Materials between engineering, supporting the manufacturing floor, to management, back and forth, project management, and now I am the leading Hispanic woman in management in the manufacturing side. So I'm actually the only one at my level in the 50+ years at my company. So what I like the most about engineering is that it gives you the capability to move through different roles and just use that problem solving that we learn in school to just break things down, whether it be a technical issue, a human resource issue, or any kind of issue, you break it down completely. So.
Awesome, thank you. And Sarah, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so in high school, right, I loved chemistry and I also loved biology. So when it got to be time to, apply to colleges, I didn't really know if I wanted to do chemical engineering or biomedical engineering. So I figured, well, okay, I'll apply to half my schools as biomedical engineering and half is chemical engineering, and I'll pick a major when I get there. So when I got into USC, I didn't even know what degree I'd gotten accepted for. So I had to go back and look, and it was chemical engineering. And then, so chemical engineering at USC is very heavily petroleum focused. And the more I kind of got into that, the more I said, this isn't for me. What else is out there that I can do with this degree? And that's when I kind of stumbled into semiconductors. So I got an internship at TI. Then in the summer between senior year and my master's, did another one, came back full time. As I mentioned, I've been in a few different groups, a few different parts of the process within the same factory, starting as a process engineer and then supervising manufacturing specialists who help load our tools for us, technicians, and then finally managing a whole section of the process.
Awesome. And you bring up a great point that I just want to maybe emphasize to those who are joining in. Sarah mentioned that chemical engineering at USC has a petroleum engineering bent to it. Each different university seems to take a different approach sometimes to their different majors. And so the chemical engineering that Katie experienced in her schooling looks very different than what Sarah experienced, which is going to look very different from what I experienced as a chemical engineer at UT Austin. So taking a look at the degree plans at those institutions you're applying to can give you an idea of maybe what the specialty area is or what the focus is for that university's program. And we often tell students thinking about biomedical engineering, Sarah brought that up as well, that biomedical engineering at UT Austin within the Department of Biomedical Engineering looks one way, but you can also specialize in biomedical engineering through chemical engineering or through mechanical engineering or through electrical engineering. And so understanding those different twists and turns within your degree plan can be helpful as you're trying to decide on your major. So looking at those things can be helpful. All right, well, I got one more question for our fabulous panelists, and then we're going to turn it over to you all for questions. So make sure that you open up that little Q&A space and throw some questions in there. And I see we have one question about herbs already. So we got that one answered. But please throw in your questions. We're going to have lots of time for them. Otherwise, I know Sarah and Maya probably have some questions for them, and I can keep always asking more questions to them, but we want your questions answered. So my last question that I'm going to throw out right now is, your companies, you're all at large companies that hire all kinds of different engineering disciplines or have engineers with your same degrees doing a variety of different things. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that variety? Maybe talk about some of the other types of engineers that come into your company, what they do, or maybe even, what do other chemical or mechanical engineers do at your companies? And Marisela, why don't we start with you this time?
Sure. Well, in the Austin area, we definitely hire a lot of mechanical and electrical based engineers because they are supporting a lot of the manufacturing that's being done here in Austin. So, and even in the mechanical realms or in either realms, right, they're doing a variety of engineering support from just supporting the manufacturing floor to making design changes, working with our suppliers to address any issues. So there is just a vast majority of things that we do, right? Which is great. That's what one of the things I really have loved about my company is that even though you have a mechanical engineering degree, you are just supporting everything. In California, which is our research-based operations, we do tend to hire more of the chemical-based engineers out there and as well as electrical mechanical. And that's definitely working with our customers like Samsung, right, to determine what kind of process they want to change or improve or, kind of just narrow down to. So changing what process gases are going in through our tools, what chemical compositions, right, depending on what product that they're going to be using, either chemical vapor or metal deposition or whatever it is that they're going to be working with. So we do have, that type of capability out there, as well as working with the design groups. So definitely, very mechanical, electrical, and chemical based out in California. Whereas in Austin, it's more of the mechanical and electrical. Day to day, like I said, it just varies. A lot of our electrical do deal a lot with our harnessing and our cabling issues that we may have, any power issues that we have with our tools. If you ever get a chance to come out, you'll see our tools are pretty big, and I think Katie can attest to that. Some of our equipment is huge that we deal with, and the power going through one of our tools can power up an entire neighborhood. So it's being able to design it safely, so it's manufactured safely and used safely by our customers as well.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to Katie, since there's the circle here of all the connectivity between our Applied Materials, Samsung, and TI companies. Katie, can you talk a little bit about that at your company?
Yeah, so I guess taking a step back, Samsung is a semiconductor manufacturing facility in Austin. So we're a 24/7 factory. We are pumping out these chips or wafers that go out the door and then go into cell phones, TVs, cars, all kinds of stuff. And so we do use tools from Marisela's company, Applied Materials, many other companies to achieve that. And so the majority of the work and the majority of the engineers actually work in the factory, or the fab is what we call it, the clean room space. So those are process and equipment engineers. The process engineers are a little more data-based, running studies, trying to improve things. The equipment engineers are trying to make the equipment more efficient or fix it if there's an issue going on. And so for those groups, they hire really most engineering majors. It's not really a specific major that they're looking for. It's just that engineering background and ability to troubleshoot or to process data and get meaningful information from it. So electrical, mechanical, chemical, computer hardware, all of those kinds of engineering folks end up in our factory. We also have a pretty large software team because all of the systems that we use are homegrown. Samsung writes all its own systems for better or for worse. And so we have a lot of engineers that are helping to maintain those systems, to add new features to those systems, to process the data, because there is tons of data coming in every second, because everything in the factory is tied to systems recording at this point. So lots of software engineers that are working on that. And then we also hire industrial engineers that help with the overall manufacturing capacity and planning. We run all kinds of different products for Bitcoin mining and automotive and everything. So those are all slightly different processes. So some industrial engineer has to figure out the optimal way to get all that through the factory as quickly as possible. And there's even environmental engineers. So we have, obviously we're a large manufacturing site. So there is waste that needs to be dealt with. And so our environmental health and safety department is focused on that. So we do hire environmental engineers as well. And because of their hard work, we actually often get recognized for how much we're doing for the environment, how clean we're making the water. Like we're making it cleaner than we need to when we're done with it. And so, just trying to be a steward for the environment, because we want everyone who lives around us to be happy too. So yeah, those are most of them. We also do, in my department, have materials engineers, since I am the material technology group. So that's a little more of a specialized major, but I know there's some materials engineers out there. And so we have those as well.
Awesome. That's great. And I like the way that you talked about the environmental piece, because I think a lot of times that our students don't connect in that every company is really paying attention to that environmental impact as well. So every engineer has an environmental engineering mindset in some form or fashion of trying to make sure what we're doing is not harming the environment or people in any way. So thank you for sharing that as well. All right, Sarah, what about you?
Well, I think Katie just did a fantastic job of explaining the different roles and the engineers at TI as well, pretty much, because it is pretty similar company to company when you look at semiconductor manufacturing. I guess I will just say in my personal experience, so I've been in 3 different groups, the diffusion group, the yield enhancement, which is kind of inline quality control, and now photolithography. And so all 3 of those roles have been very, very different, even though I've been an engineer in the same factory in each of them. So there's just a lot of variation and a lot of variety. And even though all of those roles were technically a process engineering role, the day-to-day work was very different just based on the nature of that process. So there's a lot of different things that you can go and do. I will say that TI tends to employ an insane amount of electrical engineers, because we do a lot of our own in-house designing. We do the whole process ourselves, from design through manufacturing, sales. A lot of our sales team is going to be electrical engineers as well, so they can work with our customers to really explain the process. And then chemical and mechanical engineers, as well as working on the tools and the processes in the factory. Also, our facilities team will be made up of those people, and they're going to be, delivering the chemicals to all the tools, helping with the environmental controls in the factories, because the clean rooms are, we don't just say that they're clean, like that means that we have on average like 1 particle per cubic square foot for our class clean room. So they're very, very clean. And we have a whole team dedicated to the systems that are supporting that to make sure that we're keeping those at optimum manufacturing conditions. So I think tons of roles for all the different fields, and just really cool. You can do a bunch with even 1 degree. There's a million things you can do with it.
Some of the benefits of being at a large company, right? All of those different opportunities that you have. Fabulous. Well, thank you for sharing all that. The questions are now starting to come in. So I am going to stop asking my questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Maya and Sarah to help us work our way through these questions that y'all have been submitting. And again, remember, you can click the little thumbs up button and it'll move some of those questions up to the top as well. So Maya and Sarah, I'm turning it over to you all.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks to our panelists. There's some really cool experiences. I love how interconnected all your stories are. So our first question, Ms. Rios already kind of touched on it, but I think it's a great question. So I'd love to hear from all of our panelists. So the question was originally, what impact have you seen from you being the first woman of your origin to hold your position as a Hispanic manager for Ms. Rios, but also just being a woman in engineering and in these big companies. Can you share some of your experience with that?
Definitely. When I was a supervisor 18 million years ago, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I was actually one of the very first Hispanic supervisors for manufacturing as well. And over the years, we try to develop more women to get not only in engineering, but go into the management role. Should it be engineering or should it be in the manufacturing side? We actually just got one of our first Hispanic women in engineering managers not too long ago. And I've kind of been tagging her to kind of start doing stuff with us. So Tricia, I need to give you her name. So being the first Hispanic at my level, at this high level that I'm at, I've been able to make a lot of impacts, right? I get a lot of calls from HR, from other managers, from other Hispanics, whether they be male or female. I get calls from females wanting to sit with me. Hey, I've got a question. And what I normally tell people is, ask me anything you want. Ask me how my career was. Ask me what I went through. I'm very open about the trials and tribulations that I've gone through in my company, from being called sweetheart, from other managers to, people not believing in my capabilities, because I am a woman, right? I do have an engineering background, so that does help me some. But the impact that I've been able to do is just, I get phone calls from everywhere, and I've had, senior HR, senior VPs, just who know my name, and I'm sitting there like, how do you know who I am? But being able to be in that role, and one of the things that I tell a lot of women is, don't be afraid, right? Go for that role. If you fail at it, try again, right? We all fail. I have failed more than once, more than I want to count in my hand. But I've always tried over and over and over. So. And I know Katie and Sarah, both of you guys are also in management or have been doing management.
Yeah, so I joined initially on the equipment side at Samsung, and also in the facility side, which is a little bit more of a boys' club than we want it to be. So I was the first female engineer to join that group. And then I became the first female supervisor in that group. But as that group was growing, there were 8 engineers when I joined. We got it to over 30 by the time I moved to another department. I was part of the hiring process, so I was able to help get more women hired into the department. So it's very important that as a woman in leadership, and I'm sure Sarah and Marisela can attest, to lift other women up as you're climbing the ladder. So that's something I'm really proud that I got to do. And so I'm a member of our Women in Technology group at Samsung. So it's an employee resource group for women and male allies to network, to have a support group, to work on professional development, get a mentor. So that's been a really great support group for me. And so I've never really felt alone, even if in my department I was the only woman. I had this great network that I could turn to when I, was frustrated or experiencing issues. And that's really helped kind of build me up and feel confident in what I'm doing at Samsung, and know that I'm supported by this large network of people there.
Yeah, I can chime in as well. Sorry, it was not letting me unmute for some reason. No, I agree that it's just so important for women to support other women. I also am part of a diversity initiative. TI has a bunch of them for a bunch of different diversity groups, but one that I'm in is Women in Engineering. So we work closely, to help support new hires. I remember it was very intimidating my first day as an intern to walk into a room full of all guys that, asked me if I was in the right spot. And I'm like, I think so. I think this is the right group. I'm my first day, I very well could be lost, but I was in the right spot. So just trying to help support other new women coming in, the women on my team as I've risen in different management roles. And then anyone, kind of like Marisela, anyone who reaches out for help and support.
Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. It's really interesting to see how everybody's different stories is playing out. One question that we got is, what made you want to work at the company that you are at now?
Sarah, you go first.
All right, I was thinking, this is gonna sound really silly, but I had no idea what semiconductor manufacturing was when I applied to TI. I just knew it wasn't petroleum, and I didn't want to do petroleum, so let's go see what else is out there and we're gonna figure it out. So I just knew, you know, I grew up in Dallas. I grew up driving by the TI headquarters. It's very prominent at two major highway crossroads here. And I was like, okay, let's see what they do. Like, not oil, so I like it more than that probably. And then as I got here and I got to learn what the work is and how supportive the company is, TI is very heavily involved with local outreach programs through a variety of different charity organizations, primarily the United Way. Just really proud of the culture that TI has. It was very clear. It's a very open company, very supportive company. I think this last year and the support that TI has had for all of our employees as we navigate this new normal has been really impressive. So that's made me want to stay since I got here. The people really, and the culture is the main thing. You know, work anywhere is going to be stressful, it's going to be challenging, but it's the people and the support that you get. And that's been one of the main reasons that I've really enjoyed working at TI.
Oh, well, honestly, when I started at Applied, it was, I need to find a job, right? And I pretty much started 3 weeks after I graduated. Applied was new to the area when I started. Obviously, I like the company. I've been there over 26 years. We've grown so much in the last, umpteen years that we've been here. The culture that we have at Applied has definitely changed from when I first started, right? Back when, our average age was everybody that had started. Now we have two different average ages, right? The over 40 somethings and the younger 20 somethings, right? So we definitely have the two different areas, which is great, right? It's great bringing a great dynamic into the company. And we work with each other. We have a lot of diversity groups. I'm involved in about 5 different diversity groups that I help with. And the capability to just grow within the company. I know it can be people give a spiel about your company, but in honesty, Applied has offered me a lot of opportunities to grow, to learn, and just develop myself, right? From the groups that I'm involved with, the conferences I'm able to attend, the people that I'm able to meet, the jobs I've been able to do and just grow in. So, and definitely being able to be involved with programs like WEP, right? And just being able to share what I've learned over the years. If there's something that I can give to help somebody either stay in engineering or grow, then I've done my job. Then I'm happy. So.
It's funny what Sarah said about not knowing about semiconductors. So the first company I worked for was not Samsung. So I graduated in 2011, right at the end of the recession, and the economy still was not great. So I only had one job offer coming out of college, and it was for a company in the semiconductor industry that I also knew nothing about. And so they made small analytical equipment for some of the very specific like electroplating processes that happen in the factory. And so with that company, I actually got to travel to several of the major manufacturers. Intel, I even went to Taiwan for TSMC a couple times, and also came to Samsung in Austin once. But out of all of the companies that I had visited, the Samsung engineers really like struck a chord with me because they wanted to know about our equipment and how it worked, and they really wanted to understand it. Whereas at some of the other places, the engineers there were just kind of like, oh, it's your equipment, you go fix it. So it was really that kind of natural curiosity and wanting to dig deep into the technical side of it with their vendors that really attracted me to working at Samsung. And also I mentioned I grew up in South Florida, and then I was living in New York for 8 years. And so I was really tired of winter. So Samsung being in Austin was definitely a plus for me. And the culture has been great since I've been there. Like I said, I'm part of our women's group and I helped found that, and now I'm helping to lead it. Samsung does a huge amount of giving back in the community. I'm really excited that hopefully we're going to start that back up in person soon. And so really being part of a company that cares not just about its employees, but about the community around it. That's really important to me, and I feel like it's a good place to be.
I also just want to say real quick that I know I've said a few times that like petroleum is not for me. Petroleum, just full disclaimer, is a really great and critical like field of chemical engineering to go into. So I'm not trying to like dissuade anyone from chemical engineering or from petroleum engineering. My best friend works at Chevron. It is great. It's just, it was a personal preference. So full disclaimer on that one.
Awesome. All right. Our next question is for each of y'all, if you could walk us through a day in your life at your company.
There's no standard day. Every day is different. Every day has new challenges. So yeah, I mean, as a manager now, I'm relatively new to this, like being a manager. I've been a manager since October. A lot more meetings, certainly. I spend my day, you know, just checking in with my different engineers, working through, you know, the different issues that are arising, making sure that I'm helping clear any roadblocks that they have in their projects, and getting status updates, kind of making sure everything's on track and we're all moving in the same direction. Kind of vague, but there is not any one standard day. For me, it's a lot of operational meetings, tactical discussions, just kind of setting a framework for the team to go off and then doing whatever I need to help support my engineers get their work done.
Yeah, I'd have to echo that. You know, it can change a lot day to day. And if some big issue comes up and everything you thought you were going to do that day is no longer getting done. But typically I work like 8 to 5. And I have one-on-ones with my employees. I'm spending time with them, helping them prioritize what needs to be done. Like Sarah said, removing roadblocks for them is kind of the biggest both challenge and reward of being a manager. But yeah, I can be diving into a defect issue that's caused by one of our raw materials, and then I'm working with our vendor to identify what's causing it, help contain it, get it resolved. Can also be doing improvement or cost savings projects within our factory, because I'm kind of in a unique position where I'm both dealing with our external vendors and also internally the fab is kind of my customer. So I'm kind of that go-between of both dealing with vendors outside and then our engineers inside. So there's definitely a lot of meetings and a lot of kind of business processes that we're establishing with the vendors to make sure that we're getting the material that we need on time and it's the right quality. So yeah, it really changes day to day, week to week. We have an audit next week with one of our vendors. It's a virtual audit for now, but we can be focusing on that. We can be focusing on issues. We can be doing capital projects to put in new equipment or get ready for if there's a factory capacity increase coming up. We need to have more material for that. So that can be a big focus for us. So really all those different things fall under the scope. So it's never boring.
And pretty much mine echoes what both Sarah and Katie have been saying, right? It just varies. At the level I'm at now, I do more of the operational, tactical, high-level meetings, trying to stay at that range right now and not try to get my hands too much into the day-to-day, let my management team take care of that with our technicians and the engineers. But with the varied background that I have, I could be working on a quality issue because I've done quality control, been running ran several groups with that. I could be helping one of the engineers solve one of the design issues or troubleshooting, just depending on what problem it is. If it's right now, we're having lots of logistical issues. So dealing a lot with the logistics issues, trying to remove all the obstacles and roadblocks that my team can have, as well as other teams helping them out. But again, it does change day to day, but definitely as our volumes are increasing because of the demand from our consumers, being us, right, wanting smaller, faster, 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 we need more chips, smaller chips, faster chips. And so our volume increases in manufacturing have been skyrocketing. So definitely our capacity increases within our manufacturing floor, attending meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. So I'm lucky if I eat lunch at around 2 o'clock sometimes. Sometimes I forget and it's 4 o'clock. I'm like, oh, I still have to eat lunch. So it depends, right? And it's like right now, I said it's the end of our quarter. So it's kind of a little busier last couple of weeks. But day to day in management, definitely a lot more meetings.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about your day-to-day experiences. One of our questions is, what is your favorite task to do on the job? I know you said that it's not the same day-to-day, or that it's completely different depending on the day, but what would you say is your favorite thing to do, or that you enjoy most about your job?
Well, I love getting to help watch my.
Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah. I love getting to help my team achieve their goals, their personal career development goals. That's the thing that I find most rewarding on mine is, does someone on my team want to go on the technical ladder? Do they want to go down the management track? And working with them to help figure out, things that can help better position themselves for those opportunities in the future. That's what I find most rewarding.
And I'm actually going to echo what Sarah said, right? I've actually lost quite a few employees from my group because I helped do that to them. So it's rewarding that they're growing, but at the same time, I'm crying in the background like, oh my God, I just lost my employee. But when that employee stops you in the hallway and relays to you that they wouldn't be where they're at if it wasn't for you guiding them, or they're using the way you coached them and worked with them to coach others, and you're seeing that growth in them, where they're telling you, oh yeah, I told this person, you need an advocate, you need because you should always have a mentor and a sponsor, right? There's a definition of there's two different things for that, and this person was like, oh, if it wasn't for her, you need somebody like that's going to help guide you. That's definitely one of my perks of my job. And then for me, being second level management is talking to my technicians, right? Of what issues they're encountering, because they'll IM me, hey, boss lady, or, a lot of my guys speak Spanish. So they're like, hey, jefita, I need this help. And being able to just connect with them, knowing their lives, who, what their wives, husbands, children are going through. That's actually one of my favorite things to do as well in my role, is to just chit chat with them and get to know them even more.
Yeah, so also being a people leader, it's definitely great to see that your team is successful and it is hard to kind of give up some of the technical aspect of your role and not get to get into the weeds of it as much. But even if you're not making that technical impact anymore, if you're doing a good job as a manager, each member of your team will be doing that. So you're kind of multiplying your effect, which is really cool. And it's definitely rewarding when the right people are in the right job and they're growing and developing and reaching their goals. I do think on the technical side, when it's something that at this point is more my team achieving, if we're doing an improvement project that is successful and so we increase the yield on our chips or something, that's definitely rewarding because we know we're affecting the bottom line of the company and the goals that our company has. So that's something that I always get really excited when I get to go brag about my team and the work that we've done and show off what we're doing. So those are the good days.
Awesome. Or our webinar is coming to an end. We have one more question. It's kind of a two-parter. So what has been fantastic about your experience as an engineer, and what's been maybe the hardest challenge and how you overcame that?
So I guess for me, fantastic. I will say it's cool to travel. I don't get to travel that often, and it's obviously been on hold for a minute. But in my first job, I traveled a bit, as I mentioned. But even for Samsung now on the material side, we go to audit our vendors. And so I actually got to go to France in 2019, which was pretty cool. I selflessly volunteered for that trip because the destinations are not always in the coolest places, but this was definitely one that everyone wanted to go on because there was a silicon wafer manufacturer there that we were considering using. So that's definitely fantastic. But also just the crazy technology that we're working on and how much money is going into this factory and how much money is coming out. And you're dealing with these tools that are worth $100 million each. You know, sometimes you take a step back and just look at how kind of fantastic all that is. And Samsung really gives you a lot of responsibility very quickly. So you quickly become a part of that. So there's a lot of opportunity, which is cool. I think something that's been challenging for me throughout my career, or at least early in my career, was really finding my voice and learning how to speak up in meetings. I was always just very intimidated, especially if I was the only woman in the room. I'm naturally a quiet, reserved person. So it took a lot of practice for me to be able to get out there. And something that a manager told me that really resonated was, if you're in that room, you were invited for a reason. They want to hear your voice. So you should definitely be contributing. And so that's something that stuck with me and helped me grow as an engineer and a leader.
Yes, for me, the hardest part, as I mentioned earlier, when I came to TI, I had no semiconductor experience, no background, no knowledge. And it is a very, very, very technically complex process with a lot of different nuances and a lot of different things, ways that things can go wrong. So I think the hardest part has just building that technical foundation. Especially as I've moved around to different groups, they all have their own different technical nuances. And so I've been in my new role since January. And so trying to manage a team that's doing a process that I don't have any prior knowledge about has definitely been a challenge. Just trying to build that technical competency. But on the flip side of that, you know, it's also my favorite thing about the job is that I'm always learning. There's always something new to go learn, that I'm never bored. So.
And for me, I mean, one of the greatest things about my job is having had the capability to do so many different roles, right? I started as a technician on the manufacturing floor, actually building the equipment and having that knowledge, and then going into management, going back into the engineering role, doing project management, getting those skills, being involved with quality, just all the different capabilities that I've had. Now, on the flip side, that also gave me a lot of obstacles and challenges, right? Being a female in some of those first roles, like Hetty stated, right? When you're in a meeting and you're the only female in there, being able to speak up for yourself. I remember having a meeting a few years back with all my counterparts from around the world, and it was about 22 different, 22 to 25 people in there, and I was the only female. And so when it came to take a picture of the whole group, I stood right in the middle with my red shirt on, because I made sure I had a red shirt on, so I stood out, right? And I always voice my opinion. Tricia's known me for many, many years. She knows I'm always gonna say what's on my mind, which sometimes gets me in trouble. But never holding back, because, or even when somebody's gonna talk over you, I've had that happen to me over the years, right? The company has learned with all our diversity programs that we've had in place. We have a yearly diversity program that we run at Applied. That's a couple of days. We bring in speakers from all over the country, even outside the country, to come and speak to us, right? It's a full-blown conference that we have within our own site. That has been amazing. It was started by one of our previous VPs that just drove diversity and inclusion within the company, but never letting somebody talk over you, right? If you say something and they blatantly ignore you, then you're going to state it again, but also know who your advocates are in those meetings, right? I always have advocates in meetings with me that if I state something and somebody's going to talk over me, they advocate for me, and then I am able to start talking again. But that was one of the hardest obstacles throughout the years as the company has grown, as diversity has grown within every aspect of our lives, both within companies, outside, personal. Being able to identify who we are, is being able to just stand up for who you are and not let anybody say, well, you're just a girl. Yes, I am a girl, and I'm going to stand up for myself. So that was always one of the biggest challenges that I faced. But as I've grown in my career, I have really shown who I am, and being able to stand up for myself and for my team. I definitely defend my team tooth and nail. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all of those fabulous experiences and stories. Thank you, Sarah and Maya, for facilitating those Q&A wonderfully. We are at the end, and I'm going to throw back in the chat the resources again. You can find, of course, all of our FabFems Fridays. If you missed some on our YouTube channel, we have a whole playlist of them, as well as frequently asked questions and all kinds of things to help support you all in your journey exploring engineering and engineering careers and connecting with other role models. And don't forget, fabfems.org is a great resource to find more fabulous STEM role models, and our Can't Question Google Sheet has lots and lots and lots and lots of questions answered. And then if there are more questions that you have, you can always reach out to us in the Women in Engineering program, and we're happy to answer those questions as well. So again, thank you to our fabulous panelists, Sarah, Marisela, and Katie. Thank you to Applied Materials and Samsung, Austin Semiconductor, and Shell and TI, Texas Instruments, for supporting us all summer with our summer camps and our FabFems Fridays. This is our last FabFems Friday again for the summer. I can't believe we've made it to the end of July. Watch our social media for more FabFems Fridays. Like I said, we'll probably do some more in the fall and the spring, and we'll definitely bring them back next summer for June and July as well. So with that, thank you. Have a fantastic Friday. Thank you, Sarah, Marisela, and Katie, for joining us. Thank you, Maya and Sarah, for being amazing facilitators. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.